Hey again, so here manhwa moose. Prensting you. He slept through the apocalypse and woke up as a lazy mage in a world of monsters. Manhwa recap. What if you missed the end of the world by oversleeping in another lifetime? A 34-year-old office worker dies in a car crash, and wakes up in a world where magic is real, monsters rule the wild, and the apocalypse happened a century ago. Born into a powerful mage family, he's got the talent, the bloodline, everything a hero needs. Except he's lazy. Like, dangerously lazy. But when the Magic Academy turns into a battlefield, and ancient threats start resurfacing, even the world's most unmotivated mage might have to step up. This isn't about saving the world, it's about a man trying not to die stupid twice. Let's dive in. I always thought death would come in some epic form, fire, explosions, maybe a god with a clipboard. Instead, it was a silver Honda at 60 kilometers per hour. My own fault for trying to cross on red while scrolling through memes. 1 second I was alive, the next I was a human meatball being scraped off asphalt. No glorious send-off. No deep regret. Just the faint smell of burned rubber and a ringtone I never got to answer. Then came the darkness. And then, light. Warmth. Noise. Pain in every muscle I didn't remember having. My eyelids fought me like they were cursed. Everything was loud. Muffled yelling, crying, clanking metal and someone saying what I can only describe as the verbal version of static noise. At first, I thought I was hallucinating. Maybe coma. Maybe brain damage. Maybe reincarnated as a brick. But then I realized something terrifying. I had been reborn. As a goddamn baby. 2 weeks post-respawn. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Babies are useless. They cry, eat, poop, and scream at 3 a.m. for no reason. And that's exactly what I spent the first few weeks doing. Don't judge me. I had to play the part. Inside I was a fully grown Indian man trapped in a wriggling pink body with zero bladder control. Worse, the people around me didn't speak any language I knew. No Hindi. No English. Not even broken English with that thick uncle accent. Just gibberish. Elegant gibberish, yes, but definitely not Earth-based. It sounded like someone trying to read Tolkien with a French accent while drunk. Still, I wasn't a complete moron in my past life, just emotionally bankrupt and spiritually unmotivated. So, I listened. Picked up syllables. Patterns. The way certain sounds made the people around me react. Over time, I realized 2 important things. 1. The people caring for me were my parents, and they were oddly hot. Like, ridiculously good-looking. My mother had a regal face, flowing brown hair, and a soft voice that made me sleepy even without the milk. My father, tall, sharp-eyed, always in black robes etched with glowing symbols like some Final Fantasy reject. 2. I wasn't in Kansas, or India, or Earth. This world ran on a different set of rules. Magic existed. Swordsmanship was treated like a civil service skill. People wore clothes like they were extras in a Victorian-era anime. Horses still existed, but so did floating lamps. I saw someone levitate a broomstick out the window one morning like it was a regular Tuesday chore. 6 months later, baby talk no more. I started babbling words around month 5. By month 6, I could form basic sentences. My mother nearly fainted when I started saying, Mava, flu mi ranta, which, if I got my syntax right, meant, Mother, carry me up. A lot of language came instinctively. Either my baby brain was some reincarnation cheat, or I'd unlocked that fabled, receptive window children have for learning speech. By the end of the year, I could understand most conversations around me, even if I still spoke like a drunk poet. Names followed shortly after. My father's name was Cale Wirehart, a court mage, which apparently was this world's version of a government official/magical nuke. He worked directly under the royal family of an empire called Welschen. The name sounded like a mix of wellspring and stallion and made me want to punch someone. My mother's name was Lyria, a housewife who'd once trained in elemental healing magic before retiring to raise me, and maybe other kids later, please no. And me? I was now Lucian Wirehart. Yeah, very fantasy, very chosen one sounding. No pressure. Age 1. The magic test of doom. By now I could walk, talk, and eavesdrop like a champ. I'd also concluded, through months of vague conversation, that this world had seen a world-ending event a century ago. A true apocalyptic catastrophe, involving monsters that tore cities down, dragons that burned nations, and an actual hero's party who saved the realm with great sacrifice. But that was 100 years ago. Now, peace. Rebuilding. Scientific and magical advancements growing side by side like two cats forced to share a couch. Anyway, none of that mattered. Not today. Today was the day my father decided to test me for magical affinity. Now, I'd seen kids from nearby houses get tested. It usually involved some glowing orb, lots of dramatic humming, and either joyful squealing or disappointing sighs. Not everyone had magic. But in this region, most commoner families had something. Magic or sword. One or the other. I was hoping for magic. Swords require muscles. Muscles require effort. Pass. I sat on a wooden stool, barely big enough for my 1-year-old butt. My father, Kale, stood before me in his robes, arms crossed, eyebrows forming the "you will not disgrace me" look common to Asian parents and imperial court mages alike. He held out a small crystal orb, pale blue, warm to the touch. "Lucian," he said in a deep voice, "place your hand, focus." Easy for him to say. My baby brain was still figuring out how to focus on not peeing myself in high-stress situations. Still, I did as told. Placed my hand, closed my eyes, focused. At first, nothing. Then warmth. Then, cold. Then burning. Then my palm lit up. The orb glowed crimson. Then blue. Then gold. Then violet. Swirling like an unstable mood ring possessed by a disco ball. My father's eyes widened. My mother gasped behind him. "Elemental fluctuation." He muttered. "So soon? What does it mean?" My mother asked, stepping forward, clutching her dress. "It means." Kale stepped closer, kneeling to my level. His gaze pierced through me like a microscope powered by fatherly pride. "Our son has affinity to multiple elements. 4, at least." He turned to Lyria. "He's a natural conduit, a rare born." They kept talking. Words like arcane reservoir, mana channels, potential surpassing lineage. Stuff I would have laughed at in my previous life while binge-watching anime. Now, it was my life, and apparently, I had talent. A lot of it. Later that night as I lay in bed, yes, still in a crib, don't judge, I stared at the moon through a stained glass window. So let me get this straight, I thought. I get hit by a car for being a dumbass. I reincarnate in a world straight out of a dark fantasy novel. I have magical talent, and I'm born to a loving, powerful family. This almost feels like an apology letter from the universe. Of course, things wouldn't stay easy. This world was too structured, too peaceful on the surface. People talked about science mixing with magic, of tensions rising between nations, of old heroes dying and new ones being watched like lab rats. And me? I'd slept through the last apocalypse. Something told me the next one might not be so kind. But for now, I had diapers, milk, and mana, and a very sarcastic internal monologue. Let's call it progress. So, at the age of 5, my father decided it was time to move me from adorably magical toddler to small, combustible apprentice. Translation. Magic lessons began. I'd spent the last few years refining the language, eavesdropping on noble drama, and learning basic etiquette without face planting into soup. Mother was thrilled I wasn't dead yet. Father? He treated me like I was a living project report waiting for a breakthrough. "Lucian," he said one morning, standing in our backyard that smelled like damp stone and medicinal herbs, "it is time you begin forming your core." Ah yes, the core. The magical equivalent of installing a GPU into your soul. Magic Core Theory 101. As explained by a man who hasn't smiled since the cataclysm. There is mana, Father said, drawing glowing sigils in the air. It exists in everything. Air, stone, flame, even the void. But to manipulate it, you must house it, here. He tapped my chest. I flinched. Still ticklish. This, he continued, is where your magic core will be formed. The central anchor of your arcane ability. The more stable it becomes, the stronger you grow. You must breathe mana in, guide it to your center, and shape it. Simple, right? Like air yoga with spiritual consequences. He went on to explain the stages, magic core development stages. Stage 1. Formation, Substage A. Mana sensing. Substage B. Mana gathering, Substage C. Crystallization. Stage 2. Refinement, Physical sync, Elemental resonance, Core expansion. Stage 3. Stabilization, Manifestation, Projection, External control. And beyond that? The realm of lunatics and living artillery shells. I expect you to be in late formation stage by your 6th birthday, he said casually, as if that was normal. Spoiler. It's not, underscore. Breathing, buzzing, and fireballs. The breathing techniques were standard anime-style fare. Inhale mana-rich air, visualize glowing streams, make it swirl toward the center of your chest like spiritual whirlpool latte art. Do this every morning, even when the neighbor's chickens are screaming like banshees. Took me 2 months just to feel mana without sneezing. But then came the buzz. A faint vibration in my gut, warm, pulsing, like a heartbeat made of liquid fire. That is your core forming, Father said, now feed it. And I did. Every day. Like a man quietly overfeeding a dangerous pet. By the 3rd month, the buzz turned into a pulse. By the 5th, I could direct small strands of mana to my fingers. By month 6? Try this, Kale said, handing me a firestone inscribed with glyphs. Channel a spark. Say the word, Piras. I held the stone, said the word, and thought don't explode. The glyph flashed red, and a thin tongue of flame danced above my palm. It flickered, hissed, then died like my will to exercise in my past life. Still. A spark. My first spell. Ember touch. Not exactly a fireball, but enough to toast a marshmallow. Or burn a goblin's eyebrows off. Underscore. Market trip. Where all side characters are introduced. Later that week, my mother decided I needed sunlight and social exposure. I argued that I had books. She argued back with a hairbrush to the head. So off we went to the market. Welschen's capital market was a chaotic blend of cobblestone alleys, floating crystal lanterns, half-automated carts, shouting vendors, and way too many smells at once. Cinnamon, goat dung, and ozone from unstable mana coils. I stuck close to Mother, pretending not to be overwhelmed. Her robes shimmered as she moved, and people gave her space. Nobility aura, I guess. Then we ran into her. Lyria. A sharp voice called, "There you are." A tall, sun-kissed woman in leather greaves jogged over, sword strapped across her back like she just walked out of a JRPG intro scene. Her blonde hair was messy, her grin cocky, and her eyes ocean blue with that reckless sparkle I already hated. Her name was Serena Elton, and unfortunately, she had a daughter. Lucian, Mother said, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder, "This is my friend Serena. And this little girl is her daughter, Riel." Riel was a miniature version of her mother, blonde, smug, and already wearing pants like she owned the street. I gave her a polite nod. She stuck out her tongue. "Why's he dressed like a noble chicken?" she said. "Because I'm not a sweaty goblin in boots," I replied, perfectly calm. Her eyes narrowed. "He talks weird, reads too much. He swings sticks at rocks. I train, bookface, and I study, biceps for brains." She gasped dramatically. Serena laughed. My mother sighed. Thus began the rivalry. Riel was everything I wasn't. Physical, bold, sword-obsessed, and loud. I was quiet, calculating, and very aware that fireballs were more elegant than flailing blades. She called me Bookworm, Fire Baby, Lord Lectures, and once even Mr. Incantation Pants. I retaliated with Sword Goblin, Muscle Fungus, and Training Arc Reject. She called our duels practice. I called them acts of bullying. Underscore. Later that night. Fire in the dark. I sat alone in the backyard, palm outstretched, staring at the tiny spark dancing over my fingertips. Ember touch. Controlled. Breathing steady. Magic was beautiful. Fire obeyed me now. Even if the world was vast, chaotic, and full of smug sword girls, I had something. And this time, I wasn't wasting my second chance, not because I wanted to be a hero. But because being strong meant not dying like a bug under a bumper again. So, I'm 15 now. Tall-ish. Sharp jawline. Fire in my blood. Wind in my lungs. Fully crystallized core. 2 elements under my belt, fire and wind. Studied under a literal court mage, thanks, Dad, and had zero interest in spending my next few years in a state-funded hormonal war zone called an academy. Which meant, naturally, I was being dragged to one. Why? Because apparently self-study, secret library raids, and occasionally setting curtains on fire wasn't enough for society. Also because my parents were convinced the Imperial Academy of Sword and Sorcery, the most prestigious institution in the Empire of Welstion, was the perfect place for me to blossom. Yeah, like a fireball blossoms in a library. On the road to doom you look like you're headed to your own funeral, Riel said beside me in the carriage, smirking like she hadn't been training since dawn. I might be, I replied. Academy's just a glorified prison, with extra paperwork. Or a battlefield. With uniforms. She flexed her arm. The same biceps for brains attitude, only now it came with real muscle and an even sharper sword on her back. Riel Elton. My childhood rival, personal tormentor, and arguably the Empire's most infuriating tomboy. We'd grown up together, sparred countless times, which she counted. I ignored, and now, through fate and bad decisions, we're taking the entrance exams together. Don't worry, bookworm, she said. When I'm winning tourneys, you can sit in the stands and read about it. I stared at her. You do realize I can literally set you on fire now? Yeah, she grinned. But can you dodge this? She poked me in the ribs before I could react. I yelped. I hope you trip during your summoning, I muttered. The Imperial Academy of Sword and Sorcery. Location. Capital city of Wernhaven, Welstion Empire. Established 102 years ago, after the world nearly ended. Specialties. Pain, public embarrassment, and emotional trauma disguised as education. The academy grounds were massive. Think Gothic towers with mana-laced runes, training fields that smelled like sweat and scorched dirt, and floating elemental statues judging everyone silently from above. 2 gates split the examinees, one for sword, the other for magic. Riel slapped me on the back. Wish me luck, nerd. You don't need it, I said. Just punch the dummy and don't stab the instructor. Only if they ask nicely. And with that, she strutted off toward the sword gate like a blonde hurricane. I, on the other hand, sighed dramatically and walked into the magic division, where over 100 kids, robed and nervous, waited under the eyes of hovering proctors and evaluation mages. The magic entrance exam. Where self-worth goes to die. There were 2 parts to the exam. 1. Spell control demonstration. 2. Summon contract evaluation simple enough, unless your nerves were made of wet paper. I stood in line, arms crossed, while students ahead of me took turns standing in the spell circle and casting their strongest elemental technique. One girl summoned a wind blade that sliced through a target clean. Applause. One guy caused an ice spike to rise from the floor, freezing the practice dummy solid. Murmurs. Then there was the kid who exploded his fireball mid-cast and singed his eyebrows off. Laughter. Harsh, merciless laughter. Lucian Wireheart, a proctor called. I stepped into the casting ring. All eyes on me. Whispers. I caught someone muttering that's Cale Wireheart's son, and someone else replying, he better not mess this up. No pressure. I inhaled. Slow. Deep. Pulled mana from my core. Spiraled it through the familiar circuits in my limbs. Felt it gather in my palm like hot liquid smoke. Piran Vira. A long ribbon of flame erupted from my palm, like a whip on fire, arcing through the air and slicing into the wooden dummy with a hiss of splinters and scorched bark. The dummy exploded in half. Silence. Then a few gasps. A cough. Someone muttered, "Fire whip, that's an intermediate spell at 15? The proctor raised a brow. Fire and wind affinity. Core stabilized. Spell control adequate. Adequate. I just flambéed a training dummy into a war crime, but sure, adequate. Proceed to summoning chamber, he added. Summon contract. Meet your emotional support monster. The summoning chamber was darker, quieter, with a massive rune circle carved into the marble. A summoning flame floated at the center, ready to channel my will into a creature that matched my spirit and affinity. The idea was simple. Summon a beast. It tells the academy what kind of mage you are. High-tier summons meant things like drakes, phoenixes, storm spirits, or, like my father, a salamander, which apparently marked him qualified to become a court mage. And now it was my turn. I stepped into the ring. The proctor began the chant, the circle ignited, and the flames swirled upward around me. My core vibrated. My blood heated. Mana surged. I called inward. Focused on my essence. Fire and wind. Controlled chaos. Calm rage. And then the flames roared, and something slithered out. A long, dark-scaled serpent, coiled in golden embers, slid from the smoke and curled at my feet. Its eyes glowed orange. Flames flickered from its open mouth. A fire serpent. It hissed, then spat a jet of flame into the air like a dragon pretending to be a noodle. The proctor narrowed his eyes. Not a salamander, definitely not, I muttered. Intelligent. Tempered mana. Elemental control moderate. Threat class. Tier 4, combat aptitude type. Recommended track, Battle Mage. Battle Mage. Not Court Mage. I mean sure. Battle Mage sounded cooler. Less paperwork. More fireballs. But still. I glanced at my summon. It stared back, like it was judging me. Do you breathe fire in your sleep? I asked it under my breath. It blinked once. Then promptly curled into a loop and napped. Great. My summon's as lazy as I was in my last life. Later that day, swordbrains and show-offs. Riel found me lounging under a tree near the academy courtyard. How'd it go? Lord lectures. I gave her a sideways look. Passed. Summoned a snake. Spits fire. Sleeps a lot. She plopped down beside me, grinning. I beat my dummy in one hit and knocked my duel partner off his feet. They called me a high-threat level sword user. Sounds accurate, I muttered. Your volume is a threat. She elbowed me. So, Battle Mage, huh? Guess you'll be in the flashy classes. And you'll be in the sword arena, trying not to stab your teammates. You say that like it's a bad thing. I leaned back, arms behind my head, as the sun dipped behind the academy towers. This wasn't how I'd planned to spend my second life. But then again, I'd been given power. A family. A rival who wouldn't let me rot in peace. And a snake that belched fire. Maybe school wouldn't be completely hell. Just mostly. I've never been good with goodbyes. Mostly because they're awkward, too sentimental, and usually involve some adult trying to shove emotion down your throat like a force-fed goat. That morning was no exception. Cold and sweet. The Wireheart farewell father stood stiffly beside our carriage, arms behind his back, robes perfectly pressed. He handed me a leather-bound grimoire. Red, old, and humming faintly with heat. Intermediate flame control, he said, not looking me directly in the eye. Study the second circle carefully. If you overload your circuits, you'll pass out. Or combust. Or worse, embarrass me. Touching, really. Mother, on the other hand, clutched my shoulders like I was shipping off to war. Eat enough, sleep early, don't duel unless provoked, and don't set fire to the laundry, again. It was one time, I muttered, and mostly contained. They both smiled in their own way. My father's was just a microscopic twitch of his lip. My mother's was the kind that carried both pride and the unspoken threat of weekly letters. Then came Riel's mother, the real menace. Serena Elton. Serena was in leather armor. Why, I don't know, maybe in case the marketplace declared war, and leaned far too close to me with that same roguish grin she passed to her daughter. Well, now that you two are adults, she said with all the subtlety of a drunk bard, you should start looking after each other properly. We plan to, I said carefully, not knowing where this was going. She winked. I mean emotionally, physically, romantically, you have my blessing. I'm sorry, what? She's strong, loyal, and definitely needs someone to keep her from getting stabbed in the face. I think she's more likely to do the stabbing, honestly. Lucian, she whispered dramatically, take responsibility for my daughter. Why does this sound like a threat? Because it is. Riel, thankfully, was too busy yelling at a luggage cart to hear any of that, but I knew, deep down, Serena was going to make my school life even more confusing than it already was. Welcome to the academy dorms. Smells like stress and potential. The student dormitories were split by division. North Wing, Magic. South Wing, Sword Central Wing, library, cafeteria, and social battleground. We were given a grace period of 3 days before official classes started. Time to settle in, meet roommates, and contemplate which part of your soul would die first. My room was on the 3rd floor of the north wing. Small, cozy, stone walls laced with mana glyphs for insulation. 2 beds, 2 desks, 1 wardrobe. The essentials. And my new roommate? Yo, said a loud, energetic voice. You must be Lucian, I'm Graham. I turned around to see a lanky, red-haired boy with eyes too bright and a grin too wide. His robe was wrinkled, his satchel looked like it had exploded on the bed, and he radiated friendly chaos. Hi, I said warily. You look like the kind of person who drinks alchemy potions just to see what happens. I do, he chirped. Great, I'm living with a mana-addicted squirrel. Meanwhile in Swordland. Riel's dorm, of course, had windows facing the training field and was filled with sharp weapons and sharper personalities. Her roommate was a raven-haired duelist from the borderlands who reportedly introduced herself by challenging the dorm warden to a mock duel. They became instant friends, obviously. The ceremony of clichés. Entrance begins. 3 days later, all first years were summoned to the Great Hall, a vast cathedral-sized chamber that smelled of burning incense and ancient mana. Stained glass. Floating runes. Echoes of dramatic music probably enchanted into the stone itself. We sat in rows, divided by division, magic on one side, sword on the other. Then came the moment every fantasy story is legally obligated to include. The bearded headmaster. He emerged from a golden archway, beard longer than my patience, robes shimmering with constellation patterns, and eyes like he'd seen every war, every monster, and every excuse turned in by late students. Welcome, he boomed, to the Imperial Academy of Sword and Sorcery. I am Headmaster Orenvale. I was casting spells before your great-grandfathers were conceived during wartime passion. Someone coughed. Someone else applauded in awe. I just squinted. His speech went on. Tradition. Honor. Duty. Blah blah. You are the future of the Empire. You may die in the process. Lunch is at midday. Then, just as the crowd was getting restless, the double doors opened again. In came the real power. The princess. The president. The walking plot flag. She stepped in like she owned the floor. Long silver blonde hair. Ceremonial red uniform. Sword on her hip that shimmered like a dragon's scale. Eyes colder than the Academy's winter-class dorms. Princess Silveria Elian Welschin. Top of her class. Student council president. Royalty. And possibly allergic to joy. Try not to drool, Graham whispered beside me. I'm not, I replied. Your face says you're running mental background checks. I was. Royalty equals trouble, and when trouble has a title, it's the worst kind. Silveria gave the briefest nod to the crowd. To the swordbearers, fight with honor. To the spellcasters, burn wisely. To the hybrids, try not to explode. Then she turned, cape fluttering behind her like she'd cast dramatic exit. Somehow, that made the sword division cheer. Magic division applauded politely. I just made a mental note to never be noticed by her. Isn't she amazing? Graham whispered. Absolutely not, I replied. She's the kind of person who walks into your life and leaves behind a 3-arc subplot and a near-death experience. And then of course Enter the Chaos Agent. Riel slid into the seat next to me, grinning like she'd stolen candy from a dragon. Wow, she said, glancing toward Silveria. Do all princesses glow with smugness, or is it just this one? Let's not get involved, I said quickly. Oh, you sweet summer nerd, she snorted. You think we have a choice? As the ceremony ended, we were dismissed to enjoy our last free day before classes started. Free, of course, being code for prepare to be traumatized by the academic calendar. I glanced at Riel, then Graham, then at my fire serpent, who had snuck out of my cloak and was now coiled smugly around my arm. Magic. Swords. Royal headaches. Rivalry. Dorm life. I'd just stepped into a new life, and, apparently, a cliché checklist. They said academy life would forge us into elite battle-ready mages. What they failed to mention is that the forge in question was fueled by sleep deprivation, chronic emotional damage, and one-sided gym class war crimes. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Our homeroom teacher. The deceiver in frilly pink class 1M, this way please. The voice was pure honey. Sweet, soft, fluttery like a dove wrapped in marshmallows. She stood at the front of the hallway with both hands clasped over a clipboard and the kind of smile that made you believe in gods again. Miss Alira Norn. Blonde hair in curls. Heart-shaped face. Pink cardigan over a white academy blouse. Big, sparkly blue eyes. And a voice so pure it could have cleansed me of all sarcasm, sins, and snide thoughts. Until she summoned a skeletal lich with 6 arms and glowing red eyes. "Meet Mr. Cinders," she said cheerfully as it materialized beside her, dragging a charred staff and oozing malice. "He's my contract partner, don't worry, he only feeds on souls if provoked." I blinked. Graham screamed. A kid in the back fainted. And me? I think my heart actually shattered from betrayal. "I was almost in love," I whispered. "You fell for the cardigan again, didn't you?" Graham muttered. "It happens. Frequently. Our schedule. A curriculum designed by sadists Miss Alira, who, yes, we now feared deeply, cheerily handed out our class schedules as the lich clicked behind her like an eldritch butler. Year 1 Mage Division. Class 1M1. Magic Theory, Basic, Instructor, Professor Tolwyn. 2. Potion Making, Basic, Instructor, Mistress Helsha. 3. Spell Weaving, Basic, Instructor, Arkan the Braided. 4. Magic Control, Basic, Instructor, Miss Alira 5. Practical Combat, Basic, Joint Class with Sword Division. 6. History of Magic and Empire 7. Imperial Language and Arcane Grammar. 8. Maths and Magical Physics. Why are there 8 subjects? I groaned. Because we are the future of the Empire, Miss Alira said cheerfully, and the future must suffer. That last part was definitely not in the brochure. The Sword Department, hostile gym instructors with swords. Our very first practical combat class was a joint training session with the Sword Division. Translation. It was an ambush. They lined us up on the sand field, surrounded by blunt training weapons, enchanted wooden dummies, and at least 3 instructors who looked like they'd been raised on war and protein powder. "You mages think you're all smart and soft with your sparkles and scrolls," growled Captain Drask, head of sword combat training. "Today, we test your bodies." "Do we get weapons?" someone asked. "No, you get pain. Now drop and give me 50 push-ups." Graham collapsed after 22. I died at 38, briefly. Lucian Wireheart, born with noble fire magic, defeated by physical education. Even Riel jogged by and shouted, "Come on, bookworm. My grandma squats better than you." "Your grandma's probably jacked," I gasped from the dirt. "Damn right, Back to class. Back to trauma between push-ups and being forced to duel animated dummies. We had theory classes. Magic theory was bearable. Professor Tolwyn was old, stern, but fair. He introduced us to mana composition, flow direction, and why your spells might explode if you skip the warm-up chant. Potion making was a nightmare. Mistress Helsha smelled like fermented lizard guts and made us chop glowing mushrooms with knives that screamed if you cut wrong. Spell weaving was oddly beautiful. Arkan the Braided, his beard had runes stitched into it, taught us how to layer incantations like musical harmonies. I was decent. Graham was accidentally turning water spells into accidental gusts of wind that blew skirts upward. He's now hated by half the class. Magic control was disturbing. Miss Alira still smiled like she baked cookies, all while making us balance flame wisps over our open palms, bare-skinned. "Remember," she chirped, "if you feel pain, you're doing it wrong, or right. That's part of the learning." Her lich loomed in the corner, taking notes with a quill made from a raven's femur. I'm not even kidding. End of the first week. Burnout and sword-shaped PTSD. By the end of our first week, I had burned off my own eyebrows, they're regrowing, slowly. Failed to pronounce an ancient incantation and made a desk levitate into the ceiling. Been tripped during combat training by a sword division noble who called me robe scum. Pulled a mana muscle. Yes, That's real, shared 5 meals with Graham, who could eat like a black hole and talk the entire time. Fought 3 dummies, lost to 1. Had my summoned snake coil spit fire at a teacher's chair. Accidentally, maybe. And I still had homework in 4 subjects and a test on mana flow diagrams. Riel's report. Proud, bruised, and dangerous. I broke a training dummy's neck, Riel reported cheerfully over lunch. Sword department cheered. I nearly summoned a fire wraith instead of a flame thread, I muttered. Magic department panicked. Progress. Your definition of progress concerns me deeply. Oh, by the way, she added, next week is our first interdivision mock battle. Teams of 2. I narrowed my eyes. You want to team up? Obviously, we'll destroy them. You just want to use me as magical artillery. Yes, and I'll block the arrows with my face. It's called synergy. God help me. As the sun set over the academy towers and the lights of floating mana orbs flickered on, I dragged myself back to my dorm, collapsed on my bed, and stared at the ceiling. Fire spells, sword maniacs, eldritch homeroom teachers, and homework schedules longer than my life expectancy. This was my new life now. And the worst part? Dear mother. I hope this letter finds you well. If not, I hope it finds you before Father does, because someone needs to be held accountable for the absolute hell your son is currently enduring. Let me start by saying I have not died, though several parts of me have come close. My spine, my pride, and any lingering hope I had for a peaceful school life were all pronounced clinically dead after week 1. You were right, by the way. This gifted education my father dreamed about. Yeah. Turns out it's code for ritualized abuse cloaked in academic tradition. Riel the trainer, or, my bruises have bruises. Stop flinching. Riel yelled, swinging a practice sword at my ribs. I'm not flinching, I'm avoiding damage, this is training. This is trauma. We'd been paired for the upcoming interdivision mock battle, a school event where sword and magic students form tag teams and try to beat the daylight out of each other under the pretense of practical experience. Naturally, Riel saw this as a divine excuse to spar with me like I owed her money. You need to learn to block with mana shielding, she shouted, launching another overhead strike. Why would I block when I can sidestep and throw sarcastic comments at my enemy until they rage quit? You're lucky I haven't rage quit you yet. I didn't respond because I was too busy rolling across the ground like a flaming onion. The opponents, twisted nobles with matching smirks. Our first battle was against a noble duo, Callan Devaro and Lycia Thorne. Both from old money. Both with perfectly symmetrical hair and the kind of smiles that made you want to test out your fire magic on their collars. I heard they forged an alliance through some old family blood pact, Graham whispered. Or maybe they're just mutually insufferable, I replied. Be careful, he added. Callan uses gravity magic. Lycia's sword is enchanted to cut through barriers. Great. So it's a combo of can't move and gets stabbed. How exciting. The battle begins, or how I did the bare minimum and still passed. Arena. Hexagonal platform with floating runes. Sand below. Floating seating above where students and instructors watched like it was the Empire's favorite blood sport. Begin. The proctor called. Callan immediately cast graviton pressure, targeting our side. The floor beneath me wobbled, and everything got heavier. Riel didn't flinch. Of course. She charged forward, mana-enhanced boots kicking off the runes as she spun and crashed her sword into Lycia's barrier with a boom that echoed across the whole arena. Meanwhile, I, being smart, walked calmly around the edge of the gravity zone, sipping a mana restoration potion and watching the chaos unfold. Callan noticed me. Are you even going to fight? Depends, I said. Do sarcastic comments count as a ranged attack? He growled, raising his staff. I'll crush you. Oh no, I said dryly. My sarcasm's only weakness. Being physically crushed. He launched another pressure wave. I lazily sidestepped. The edge of the arena glowed beneath my feet, and I nudged a minor wind rune active beneath the sand. Poof. Mini-gust. Callan's footing faltered. He stumbled. Right into Riel's flying roundhouse kick. Thwack. The crowd went wild. Lycia tried to counter with a magic slicing thrust, but I flicked a small flame thread to her sword's hilt. It flared. She yelped, dropped the weapon. Riel finished her with a clean mana pulse punch to the gut. Match over. I hadn't broken a sweat. Riel had nearly broken 2 ribs. Everyone clapped. Some were confused. I sipped more potion. Meanwhile, Team Chaos also wins. Graham had paired with Eli, Riel's sword psycho roommate. They were like 2 caffeinated wolves in a meat market. Eli with a blade that whistled through the air. Graham with wind spells that made her faster instead of being actually useful on his own. Together, they tore through their opponents, 2 kids from merchant noble backgrounds, by accident and momentum. Graham tripped over his own foot, cast wind burst in panic, launched Eli at high speed into the other team's healer. She elbowed the other in the nose. Match over in 42 seconds, it was somehow effective. They celebrated like they'd just won a war. Then Graham had a terrible idea. We should party, he said later in the dorm common room, sprawled out like a cat on a couch. Celebrate the victories, you know? Define party, I said cautiously. I got these from a senior, he whispered, pulling out a small case of colorful bottles that glowed faintly. Energy potions. Mana enhancers. Very mild, definitely safe. Probably. Graham, I said, those are black market alchemy brews. No label. No seal. Probably brewed in someone's dorm toilet. So they're organic. Before I could stop him, the girls arrived, Riel and Eli, both still sweating from post-battle cooldown. Ooh, Eli said, grabbing a bottle. Shiny. It's fine, Graham grinned. Just a celebratory boost. Cheers. Clink. And just like that, they drank, like it was water. I watched in horror. This is how we die. This is how we all die. Side effects. Chaos mode. What followed can only be described as chaotic enthusiasm on steroids. Riel suddenly challenged the hallway to a duel, with her bare hands. Eli scaled a bookshelf and declared herself queen of vertical combat. Graham was vibrating. Not metaphorically, physically vibrating. I calmly sipped actual water, looked at my summoned fire serpent napping in my lap, and whispered, I am surrounded by idiots. The fire serpent opened one eye, looked at me, and nodded in agreement. Letter continued. So, Mother, please inform Father that his noble plans for my greatness are currently being derailed by peer-induced lunacy and recreational alchemy. Also, please send healing salves. Riel says we're training again tomorrow. Which means more bruises, more yelling, and maybe a few more sarcastic monologues before I inevitably get punched in the shoulder. Sincerely, your slightly concussed son, Lucian. Location: Imperial Academy Faculty Tower, South Wing Level 3, Staff Briefing Hall, reserved for first-year progress meetings. The mood in the faculty room was a complex potion of curiosity, disbelief, and resigned dread. Scrolls hovered mid-air. Names flickered across enchanted parchment. At the center of the oval table sat a stack labeled Class 1M and 1S. Squad pairings, evaluation post-mock battle. At the top of the pile was one squad name, circled twice in crimson ink. Squad 7, Lucian Wireheart, Riel Elton, Eli Marin. Graham Whitlow. Professor Tolwyn, head of magic theory and part-time soul crusher, squinted through his bifocals. Squad 7. That's the one the students are calling. What was it? The Mad Mix, Mistress Helsha muttered, stirring a foul green substance in a teacup she never actually drank from. Or the Why Gods Why Quartet, depending who you ask. The Chaos Combo, added Instructor Drask from the Sword Division, sipping something that suspiciously smelled like whiskey. A long silence. Then the glowing parchment lit up with the squad's individual profiles. Sword Division Review, 2 battle junkies and no breaks. Instructor Drask waved his hand, pulling up Riel's and Eli's combat profiles. Riel Elton, sword rank, 6, mid-tier advanced. Mana enhanced physical combatant, battlefield performance, aggressive, efficient, ruthless. Notes. Displayed capacity to clash evenly with upperclassmen of rank 6. Ambition noted. No sense of restraint. No fear of death. Eli Marin, sword rank, 6, mid-tier advanced, wind speed agility duelist. Battlefield performance. High-speed strikes, unpredictable form. Notes. Thinks sleep is optional. Sparred with 3 instructors voluntarily, maybe feral. They're freaks, Drask grunted. Talented freaks, but freaks. They're 15, another teacher muttered. Rank 6 at 15, Drask snapped. You don't train that. You survive it. He folded his arms and glanced at the hovering roster. If they don't die, they'll be rank 3 by the time they graduate. For reference, he added, our ranking scale is simple. Swordsmanship combat ranking system, rank 9 novice. Rank 8 basic proficiency. Rank 7 combat ready. Rank 6 trained duelist, rank 5 arena competent. Rank 4 battle tested. Rank 3 war capable, rank 2 empire elite. Rank 1 national threat. They're climbing faster than any group in the last decade, he finished. That's not normal. That's obsession. Magic Division Review. One lazy prodigy and a brewing menace. Miss Alira, still smiling sweetly, Lich Butler looming behind her, swiped her hand to bring up Lucian and Graham's reports. First. Lucian Wireheart elemental affinities. Fire, wind, earth, lightning. Core status. Stage 1. Substage C, crystallization complete. Threat type. Battle Mage candidate summon. Fire Serpent, mid-tier combat classification. Strengths. Tactical thinking, mana control precision, elemental comprehension. Weaknesses. Motivation. Physical endurance. Sarcastic tendency to emotionally cripple opponents mid-duel. Performance note. Did minimum effort during exam but used terrain, opponent emotion, and team synergy to dismantle enemy strategy without taking damage. Classic low-heat prodigy type. Professor Tolwyn raised an eyebrow. Rare 4-element affinity. Stable core. Should be burning through second stage refinement already. He could be, Alira said brightly, if he didn't dodge half his training drills by pretending to be studying a mana resonance diagram. He was studying it, Mistress Helsha muttered. He just used it to reflect sunlight into his opponent's eyes during the duel. Elaborate, passive-aggressive genius, Tolwyn murmured, dangerous. Then came the real concern. Graham Whitlow core status, not applicable, specialized in alchemical constructs. Primary discipline. Potion alchemy secondary aptitude, explosives and chemical channeling. Strengths. Potion development speed. Mana resistance. No self-preservation instinct. Weaknesses. Everything else. Incident count this week. 5. Performance note. Drinks untested potions like their breakfast juice. Once made Eli's boots faster by accident. Once reversed his gravity for 7 minutes. Still handed in all homework. Suspected to be part salamander. We've had to double lock the alchemy supply room, Helsha grumbled. He snuck in last week using a disguise spell and a barrel, Alira added helpfully. He doesn't know disguise spells, Tolwyn said, blinking. Exactly. Conclusion. They might kill each other. Or save the Empire, 50-50. The profiles hovered, glowing ominously. Drask grunted. Tolwyn rubbed his temples. I vote we separate them, Helsha said flatly. I vote we observe them, Alira countered sweetly. They're interesting. Interesting is code for future paperwork, someone muttered. Let's be honest, Tolwyn said, finally. With their current trajectory, this squad is either going to be Academy legends. Or bring the whole place down in flaming, potion-soaked chaos, Drask muttered. Again. Meanwhile, in the dorm. Lucian's thoughts. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside, Eli and Riel were still sparring with glowing swords. Graham was brewing something that smelled like mangoes and sulfur. My summon was wrapped around my lamp like a sleepy scarf. I hadn't heard about our squad evaluation yet, but I could feel the stares in class, the whispers, the expectations. Too bad for them. Because I didn't come to this school to be great. I came because my father guilt-tripped me, my mother packed my things, and Riel would have dragged me by the ears. But now that I'm here, maybe I'll make something of it. Or maybe I'll just keep letting the sword maniacs do the punching while I handle the explosions. Either way, tomorrow, I'll burn someone's boots off. For educational purposes. 1 month into academy life, and we were already being called into the Great Hall like heretics summoned for judgment. Naturally, this could only mean 2 things. 1. Someone broke a rule, probably Graham. 2. The school was about to make things worse. Underscore. The gathering of the fresh sacrifices, the first-year student body, sword and magic alike, was herded into the cavernous marble jaws of the great hall. Overhead, enchanted banners fluttered with the school's crest, glowing faintly with runes that pulsed in tempo with our collective dread. Even my summon, curled around my neck like a living scarf, raised its head and hissed as if sensing academic doom. "Do you think this is about the explosive stew Graham made yesterday?" Riel asked. "No," I muttered. "This feels more structured. Like we're being organized into ranks so nobles can start manipulating people openly." "Oh, so it's Tuesday," she grinned. Underscore. The old man returns. A beard and a threat system headmaster Oren Vale emerged onto the central platform with his usual glacial pace and wizard dragon presence. His beard reached his belt. His eyes sparkled like someone who had seen way too many students die dramatically, and his voice hit like thunder with a PhD. "You have survived 1 month." That was the opening. Not, "Hello." Not, "Well done." Just a statement about survival. "Thus," he continued, "we now initiate the ranking system." A murmur passed through the hall. Students straightened. Nobles smirked. Commoners looked like they were reconsidering their life choices. The headmaster raised his staff, runes glowing like coals. "All first years will now be categorized by class ranks, based on performance during your interdivision mock battles, core potential, summon classification, and tactical scoring. Your class rank determines your academic tier, mission access, instructor priority, advancement speed. Ranks range from F to S. Most will fall into C or D. A handful may reach B or A1 or 2, perhaps, will qualify for S rank. Pray not to disappoint. The system is absolute." The nobles nodded like this was their birthright. The rest of us looked for the nearest emergency exit. Underscore, the mission hall, now open for lunacy. As if that wasn't enough, Headmaster Vale raised his hand again. "Effective immediately, we are opening the mission hall. You may now accept low-level field tasks, under Academy supervision, to gain real-world experience. You will operate in school-assigned squads." That's when he glanced, directly, at me. Or maybe at the fire snake sleeping around my neck, close enough. "And we expect some squads to make this institution bleed tears." Everyone turned to look at us. Squad 7, the Mad Mix. The Arcane Anomaly and the Sword-Slinging Psychos. I gave a polite little wave. Graham waved enthusiastically and dropped a potion. It bounced, then hissed. Someone screamed. I kicked it into a bucket before it detonated. Totally normal Tuesday. Underscore. Noble interference, or how to try rigging a system subtly. Back in the dorm, our assigned class ranks arrived via crystal scrolls. I opened mine, half expecting some school administrator's blood on it. Lucian Wireheart. Class rank. B+ designation. High potential battle mage, multi-element. Riel's scroll. Riel Elton, class rank. A designation, elite sword division combatant. Eli's. Eli Marin, class rank. A designation, high-speed combat specialist. Graham's Well. Graham Whitlow, class rank. C designation, alchemy hazard, flagged. Note. Forbidden from using self-made potions during class hours. Graham was thrilled. I'm C rank. C is for chaotic. That's a win. But the real issue came minutes later, when a sword division noble strolled past our dorm door and accidentally dropped a note. Riel picked it up, read it, and snorted. "What does it say?" I asked. She tossed it to me. "To Squad 7. Enjoy your mission, while it lasts. The next one won't be so easy when the right families take interest." Signed. Callan Devarro and Lycia Thorne, our former opponents, now somehow convinced we cheated the ranking system. I sighed. Did they expect us to respond with fear? "I was thinking a small fire," Eli muttered from the hall. Underscore, our first mission, Beast Subjugation, Party Edition. The next day, we received our first mission from the hall. Target. Pack of ironback boars in the Ashvale Forest. Threat level. Low danger objective. Clear the area and recover 1 ironback tusk as proof. Reward. 500 Imperial marks per squad member plus meal credit. Sounded simple. But you forget, this is Squad 7. We left campus before dawn, Riel wore a new set of reinforced gauntlets. Eli sharpened her blade while walking. Graham brought a backpack full of celebration potions. And me? I brought my summon, some prepped spells, and an entire backpack filled with snacks. In the field. Ashvale Forest, target location. The ironback boars weren't especially dangerous, about the size of a sedan, covered in stone-like armor plates, and aggressive only when provoked. So naturally, Graham threw a scent potion into the bushes 5 minutes in. We were surrounded in seconds. Riel cracked her knuckles. Finally, something to hit that isn't Lucian. Go easy, I muttered. These things have tusks, and feelings. Die, piggies. Eli screamed and lunged in. What followed was not a battle. It was a slaughter. A ballet of ridiculous, over-the-top techniques. Riel used burst step slams that cracked the earth. Eli blurred between beasts like a lightning bolt. Graham flung slippery potions that made the boars crash into each other. I set the edge of the forest on fire, accidentally. Within 10 minutes, we had a dozen unconscious ironbacks, no casualties, and a literal bonfire. I brought roasted vegetables. Graham cheered. We ate, right there. Among the knocked-out monsters, like it was a picnic. Riel lay on a boar's back and said, "Best mission ever." Eli toasted a marshmallow. My snake curled around a tusk like a throne. I stared at the sky and whispered, "Dear Academy, you're not ready for us. If you thought school got easier after your first successful mission and a class rank above F, you're adorable. Because what really happens is that the teachers stop pretending you're not a threat. The staff meeting, aka what do we do with these four? In a dimly lit meeting room, surrounded by books that whispered and a chalkboard that scratched itself, the instructors of Year 1 sat in grim silence. Not because of failure. No, failure was predictable, manageable. But Squad 7? They were not. Miss Alira was smiling, of course. She always did when chaos blossomed like a magical fungus. They've adapted quite energetically, she said. Riel and Eli in sword drills are outperforming second years. Lucian's starting to show second stage refinement signs in core compression, and Graham has stopped breathing fire for now. Drask, the sword instructor, grunted. I watched Riel disarm a rank 5 in 3 moves, and then ask if she was holding back too much. Mistress Helsha sipped her tea, which now smelled like sulfur. Graham's potion use has dropped by 20% possibly because he ran out of legal ingredients. Tolwyn adjusted his glasses. And Lucian. A sarcastic, reluctant battle mage with 4 elements and a summon with enough mana compression to ignite a small fort. He's learning faster than he wants to. That makes him unpredictable. There was a long pause. Then Vale's voice echoed into the room from the central crystal. Tailor their curriculum. Back to the students. We're not okay that morning. The 4 of us received sealed envelopes. Red wax. Silver rune stamp. My summon hissed at it. Looks like homework's evolving, I muttered. Inside was a new class schedule. Personalized. Like a prescription for insanity. Lucian Wireheart. Magic Division. Custom curriculum. Advanced Elemental Theory. Independent Study. Spell Control. Efficiency over Power. Mandatory sessions with Miss Alira. Tactical Combat Simulation. Mage Positioning. History of Magical Law and Court Mage Duties. Joint Class. Sword Mage Physical Enhancement Training. Notes. Student resists traditional ambition pathways. Curriculum refocused to push field application and tactical awareness. Required to attend quarterly etiquette seminars for public mage representation. Translation. We know you're lazy, but you're too smart to waste, so suck it up and look pretty for politics. Riel Elton, Sword Division, Custom Curriculum. Sword Rank Elevation Course. 6 to 5 Target Path. Mana Body Integration Training with Combat Mages. Emotional Regulation Workshop. Why? Royal Combat Observation Squad, Candidate. Notes. Student shows elite trajectory but reckless aggression. Will be assigned moderation partner, Lucian Wireheart, for team balancing. I don't need moderation, Riel shouted after reading it. You elbowed a training dummy in the crotch and yelled, "Take that, noble scum," I reminded her. That dummy looked smug. Eli Marin, Sword Division. Custom curriculum, speed-centric dual methods. Hypermobility conditioning, Tier 2 license, alchemy tolerance testing, thanks Graham. Tactical team roles and positioning notes. Recommended for short-term field missions. Psychological profile tagged as feral positive. Eli simply flexed her arm and said, "Neat, time to break more knees." Graham Whitlow, Magic Division, Potion Specialization, Custom Curriculum. Restricted Alchemy Protocol, Potion Ethics Class, Mandatory, again. Field Brewing and Rapid Recovery Studies, Controlled Environment Explosive Mixing Lab. Notes. Student requires Magical Containment Observer. Current assigned partner. Eli, God help her, potential for high innovation, medium destruction, and total disregard for labeling standards. Group assignment, social integration and public perception management. As if that wasn't enough, the back of the scrolls had a new program titled Societal World Training, Adaptation Program. Apparently, some high council was concerned that the next generation of powerful mages and sword prodigies weren't blending well with the real world. Translation. We needed to stop terrifying people. Weekly assignments now included etiquette brunches with nobles, civics classes on magical law, exposure missions to civilian culture like markets, festivals, and charity work. And worst of all, guest lectures on how not to blow up political allies. Riel in a tea ceremony with nobles. I said, "That's not training, that's bait." Lucian being told to smile more for public events is war crime, Riel shot back. Graham is the reason potion ethics is now a thing, Eli added helpfully. Class reactions, because we're now spectacle tier. By the next day, the rest of the academy knew, of course. We couldn't walk across campus without hearing, "Hey, that's Squad 7, right? Didn't they take down 12 ironbacks and have a picnic on the corpses?" I heard the Mage one talks like a noble and roasts teachers with words. The alchemist drank a strength potion and hugged a golem. The sword girl threw a noble into a fountain. No, the other sword girl threw a professor into a hedge. There were now rumors we were an experimental squad for prepping anti-apocalypse heroes. Graham started selling Squad 7 survival kits from our dorm. They include 1 minor healing potion, 1 notebook of my quotes, unauthorized. 1 sticker that says I'm with Chaos. We sold 40 by lunch. End of week reflection. I'm still here, unfortunately. That night, I sat by the window of our dorm lounge. My summon was napping on my shoulder. Outside, Riel and Eli sparred like it was war. Graham tested a new potion with goggles made from bottle caps. The stars shimmered above the spires of the academy, and I thought. I didn't ask to be important. I didn't ask to be ranked, trained, or prepared for society. But they're watching us now. Teachers, nobles, maybe something more. And all I want is to pass my courses, survive sparring practice, and not get forced into some ancient prophecy nonsense. Because if they try that, I'll sarcasm my way through it until the end of the world itself. Let me start by saying, I didn't want to be in advanced elemental theory. I just wanted to nap, practice my fire threads in peace, and maybe roast a boar or two in the training fields while Graham brewed something mildly illegal in the background. But no, because apparently being a rare 4-element battle mage with a stable core and tactical potential means you're no longer allowed to hide. So there I was, entering a tall, echoing lecture hall built like a cathedral made love to a lightning storm. The sigils on the walls hummed. The chandeliers hovered. The floor glowed faintly under pressure. And the desks, lined in rows like a war council room. I expected a few overachievers. Maybe 1 or 2 of those I read grimoires for fun types. What I didn't expect was to walk into a room full of 3rd and 4th years. I paused in the doorway, blinked, stepped back out, checked the plaque. Advanced Elemental Theory, approved attendees only. Yep. Right place. I stepped back in. Slowly, 30 upperclassmen turned to look at me. One kid with frost runes tattooed on his neck leaned over and whispered, "Is that a first year?" Another whispered, "That's the one from Squad 7, the snake guy." And then there was her, Silveria Elian Welschin, the Empire's poster girl of cold stares. Sitting dead center, surrounded by an unnatural pocket of silence and social anxiety, was the one person I've been actively trying not to get noticed by. Princess Silveria. Student Council President. Top combat duelist. Magic prodigy. Probable owner of a buried kingdom or two. She was seated with perfect posture, flipping through a spellbook with one gloved hand and somehow judging the room without even blinking. Our eyes met. My soul briefly left my body. She stared like I was a statistical anomaly she wasn't sure was legal. I awkwardly raised a hand. Hi. She stood up. She stood up. I almost ran. Instead, I stood very still. I was not going to flee like a guilty man. I had done nothing wrong today. She approached with silent steps and an expression that could chill lava. Then she stopped 2 feet from me and spoke, quietly. So you're the son of court mage Kale Wireheart. Her voice was like chilled steel. Smooth. Controlled. Regal in a way that made me feel like a frog being told to recite poetry. Yes, I said. Stiff. Honest. Internally dying. She looked me up and down. Not with disdain. Worse. With curiosity. Then she nodded. Interesting. And walked away. That was it. No insult. No threat. Just interesting. Somehow, that was worse than any of the above. Breathing again. Aleutian Wireheart tradition. I stood frozen for a full 30 seconds, then inhaled like I'd just been released from underwater chains. Nope, I whispered to myself. Nope, no, never again. I'm not getting dragged into noble politics. I'm invisible. I'm a background character. I don't need this kind of pressure. Narrator. He would, in fact, continue to get this kind of pressure. Class 2, Tactical Combat Simulation, the Chair of Doom. I walked into the next class, Mage Positioning and Combat Simulation. Great name. Sounds tactical, thoughtful, safe, until I saw the class size. Small. Maybe 20 students. More advanced types. Prodigies. Specialized duelists. And Silveria. Again. Already seated. And, of course, the only empty seat was next to her. I looked around. Nada. Nothing. Every other chair had a body or a spell bag on it. Even the wall was occupied by a student pretending to meditate while actually eavesdropping. Fate hates me, I muttered. I glanced at Silveria. She didn't look up, didn't acknowledge me. Just sat there, reading a map of mana field deployments like she was plotting a war. So I did the only thing I could do. I walked confidently over and sat next to her without flinching. Did I ask permission? No. Did I hesitate? Not a blink. Did I feel my soul trying to escape through my collarbone? Absolutely. But I kept my face calm. Professional. Stoic. I was not going to let fate, or a glorified magic princess, make me look weak. As the instructor, a sharp-featured man in leather-ruined armor, began class, Silveria finally turned her head toward me. One glance. No words. Just a tilt of her head. I glanced back. Cool, calm, collected. Internally screaming. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the rest of Squad 7 struggles with reality. Riel was getting lectured in emotional control class after suplexing a mana clone. Eli was banned from her 3rd sparring session in a day for overuse of blades screaming. Her words, not mine. Graham was trying to present a potion experiment in ethics class but accidentally brought a mood enhancement elixir that caused the professor to start singing. Our squad was, as usual, a beautiful disaster, and I, the so-called mature one, was currently surviving political death row seating assignments. The lesson. Positioning, pressure, and partners. The class ran simulations. Illusion field projected battlefields where you had to place mages and swordsmen based on terrain, mana density, and enemy movements. I passed easily. Silveria noticed. She didn't say anything, just watched. Once, she muttered, "You use your surroundings like a tactician, not a brawler." I didn't respond, because anything I said might accidentally cause an arranged marriage, a duel, or a royal conspiracy. I am not getting involved. Later that night. Dorm reflections. I sat in my room, scribbling notes. My summon curled beside me. Graham was yelling about color-shifting potion bubbles from the other room. Riel was pacing, complaining about how emotional control was for cowards. Eli sharpened her blade while humming a war song. Me? I was thinking. I don't want attention. I don't want a title. I don't want to be near a princess with combat records longer than my grocery list. But I've been placed in her orbit. Twice, coincidence or not, that means something. I may not like the game, but I think I'm about to be forced to play it. There are very few things I fear in life. One of them is Riel before her morning tea. The second is my mother's disappointed face, but a new fear recently climbed the ladder to number 3. A letter from the student council, _. The letter, aka my doom in paper form, it arrived during breakfast, delivered by a senior wearing formal robes and the kind of expression reserved for delivering subpoenas or demonic contracts. I opened it, slowly, as if the ink might bleed curses. Lucian Wireheart, you are hereby summoned to the student council chambers at midday for a conversation. President Silveria E. Welschin P.S. Bring your squad. Bring your squad, I muttered. Riel leaned over my shoulder. Did you break something? No, but I think I exist too close to her comfort zone. Graham peeked over with a muffin in hand. Maybe she wants us to do a party trick. I have glowing smoke bombs. Eli cracked her knuckles. Maybe we're getting expelled for illegal sparring volume. The student council tower, where light dies quietly. The tower was made of silver marble and political dread. Everything echoed. The walls had enchantments to muffle gossip and amplify footsteps. It was basically anxiety with architecture. We entered the main chamber. Princess Silveria stood behind a crescent desk, robed in red and gold, with a mana quill in her hand and a gaze sharp enough to shave metal. 3 other council members sat with her, upperclassmen, powerful. One of them had glowing runes on his fingertips. Another one was sipping tea so elegantly I hated him instinctively. Silveria gestured to the seats before them. I didn't sit. Not until Riel dropped into hers and kicked my shin under the table. We sat. She looked at me first, then to the others. Then back at me. Squad 7, she said, tone professional, calm. You've caused enough disruption to force the faculty to start drinking during council meetings. You're welcome, Graham said brightly. Eli saluted. Ma'am. Silveria's eye twitched. Just once, then she continued. The mission briefing. Real work for the Real Menace team. We're assigning your squad to a mission directly approved by the council, she said. A Tier 2 tactical deployment. Tier 2? I blinked. We're barely certified for Tier 3. And yet, she said dryly, your file contains more field victories than any other first-year squad. This will be a test, and a gauge. Of what? Our survivability, sanity, she continued. Mission name. Howler Nest Suppression Location, Brimclaw Ravine. Target. Alpha Class Howler Beast plus Broodthread Type. Coordinated Ambush Predators. Reward. High credit, personal recommendations risk. Moderate high. Field evaluation. Active objective. Clear nest, identify alpha, destroy core, survive. Survive? I muttered. Optional, the tea drinking council member added, sipping elegantly. Silveria passed us a crystal scroll. Report in 2 days. Depart now. You'll be portal jumped to the outer rim of the ravine. Then she fixed me with a stare. Impress me, Wireheart. I nearly combusted from the inside out. The Brimclaw Ravine. This isn't a field trip anymore. The place was ugly. Steep cliffs. Mist-choked caverns. Echoes of things screaming underground. There was a constant, low-pitched howl that buzzed in your teeth. The beasts, howlers, were the size of bears, with segmented, bone-plated limbs and teeth that looked more ceremonial than functional. But they were smart, too smart. We were briefed that they coordinated attacks using sonic pulses, hit and run. Distract, disarm, then devour. This wasn't a game. We fought like a real squad, which was terrifying. Riel took front line, tanking hits and dishing out punishment. Eli circled the battlefield, cutting legs and throats before the beasts could blink. Graham threw smoke, shock powder, and something that made one howler bite its own tail. I stood midline, firing windcutters and firebursts in layered patterns, drawing beasts into kill zones. But it wasn't enough. Not until the alpha showed up. Twice the size. Shimmering blue eyes. The howl alone shook our bones. It charged, slamming into Riel, sending her crashing into a rock wall. Eli dove forward, blades ready, but the beast was already shifting, predicting. I burned everything I had into a full-force Piran Vera Nova, a spiral burst of fire that should have torn through it. But it only staggered. Too fast, too armored. Lucian, Graham screamed, now or never. The summon joins the fight. I grabbed my pendant. Arise, serpent of flame, cinder coil. The fire serpent shot out of my cloak like a blazing ribbon, slamming into the beast's face, winding around its throat, and spitting hellfire into its eyes. It thrashed, howled, reared back. Now, I roared. Riel charged, covered in bruises and dirt, blade glowing. Eli followed in a blur. I layered wind pressure under their feet, launching them high. 2 blades. 1 head. A crack of bone and flame. The alpha fell. Everything went still. We stood among the corpses, breathing, bloodied, half-deaf, alive. Barely. Back at the academy, praise, paperwork, and paranoia. 2 days later, we stood before the council again. Silveria reviewed the report. Slowly, she looked up. Minimal injuries. 0 casualties. Nest cleared. Core recovered. I nodded. Silent. Then she said, you work well under pressure, but you still hold back. I prefer not dying, I said. Unwise, she murmured. You're too useful to play modest. She stood. Congratulations, Squad 7. You've been upgraded to Tier 2 active duty. You will be prioritized for missions and watched closely. Meaning. We were now Academy assets. Meaning. We were now exposed. As we walked out, Riel elbowed me. Hey, we did good. Yeah, I said. Too good. I stared at the scroll in my hand. And wondered what the next mission would cost us, because I had a feeling. It started with another letter, because apparently, letters were now my official harbinger of doom. This one was written on dark velvet parchment, sealed with the imperial crest and far too much gold foil. To Squad 7, you are cordially invited to attend the Empire's talent recognition gathering, hosted by Princess Silveria Elian Welschen. Dress code. Formal. Behavior. Expected. Attendance. Mandatory. P.S. Please do not bring potions that glow or hum. That last line had Graham's name written all over it. Step 1. Requesting clothes like a normal family doesn't exist. You want what? My father asked via magical mirror, blinking like I'd asked for a private dragon. Formal wear. Noble grade. Something that won't combust if I move wrong. He turned to my mother, muttering, he needs court clothes. My mother lit up like a spell scroll. He's growing into his role. I'm surviving it, I corrected. 2 hours later, I had an enchanted black suit with red gold thread woven through the lining, lightweight enough for movement, stiff enough for nobility to believe I was civilized. Riel got a fitted scarlet gold duelist's gown that looked like it could stab someone just by existing. Eli's was a midnight blue military-style dress with silver buckles that actually made her scarier. Graham's had ruffles. We didn't question it. He liked the ruffles. That was the least weird thing about him. The venue. Where nobles gather to lie politely. The event was held in the Imperial Sky Hall, a floating ballroom suspended above the capital with crystal floors, enchanted orchestras, and enough ambient mana to cook a wyvern. As we entered, I felt Riel clench beside me. Smile, I muttered. Look dangerous but digestible. I hate this, she whispered through her teeth. I know, we all do, except Graham. I made jelly potions for snacks, Graham beamed. Of course you did. Noble kids, polished egos, and weaponized compliments. The party was crawling with nobility, sons and daughters of dukes, generals, archmages, and merchants who'd bought enough titles to matter. We were approached almost immediately by a group of well-dressed teens with just the right amount of arrogance baked into their facial expressions. One tall boy with sapphire rings smiled at me. Ah, the famed fire-slinger. Wireheart, yes? Son of the court mage? I nodded. Politely, which felt like a betrayal to my personality. And you must be the wild sword girl, said another to Riel. She smiled without warmth. Call me wild again and I'll teach your teeth how to waltz. Lucian. 1. Riel. Also 1. Civility, already bleeding. Then the crowd parted, and the princess arrived. Underscore. The host appears. Silveria and her glowing time bomb. Princess Silveria entered in a black and ice blue imperial gown that whispered ruthless with every step. Her hair was braided with elemental runes. Her expression? Frosty regality incarnate. All conversation dulled. She approached us directly. Her gaze swept across our group like an inventory check. Then she locked eyes with me. Lucian. Yes, Your Highness, I said, voice smooth, spine stiff. You clean up well, she said. I practice for these exact political traps. Her lip twitched. I think she almost smiled. Gods help us all. I have something to show you, she said. Come, oh no. Underscore, the artifact. This is not normal. She led me to the far side of the sky hall, past velvet curtains and enchanted braziers, to a raised dais guarded by 2 silent knights. Upon it rested a sealed glass case. Inside, a floating, fist-sized crystal orb, swirling with muted red and pale gold light. The surface shimmered like it was submerged in time itself. This, Silveria said softly, is one of the last relics recovered after the cataclysm. It's called the Ether Core. It predates our calendar. It reacts only to specific signatures, none of which we've been able to replicate. So museum piece? She looked at me. Directly, no watch. She touched a sigil. The glass opened. I took a step back. This seems dangerous. Just stand there, she said, gesturing me closer. Against every fragment of my better judgment, I stepped forward. The orb moved. It floated, tilted, spun once, then glowed. Not softly. Not politely. It blazed, scarlet and gold spiraling around the surface like a waking beast. Then pulsed once, and the whole hall flickered with heat and wind magic for half a second. Everyone turned. Silveria blinked. It reacted. I stared at her. It shouldn't do that, should it? No, she said. It hasn't moved in a decade. I backed away. I did not consent to ancient magical recognition. You were born into it, she said flatly. You may want to learn why. Underscore. Back to the party. I regret everything. Riel found me 10 minutes later, holding a drink and looking suspicious. What happened? Did she hex you? You look hexed. No hex, I muttered. Just awakened a possibly sentient artifact linked to forgotten power structures. Totally fine. Oh, she said. So Wednesday, then. Graham handed me a glowing candy. Want a mana-laced sugar bite? Calms nervous systems. I hate all of this, but deep down, I knew something had changed. That orb responded to me, and the princess saw it. Which meant I was now officially on her radar, and worse. I had no idea why. You know that feeling when you wake up, stretch, and think. Ah, today's going to be peaceful. Maybe I'll read, sip tea, and not almost die. Yeah. That's what I thought this morning, and then Riel kicked my door open and said, Dungeon time. Wear something that won't melt. Underscore. Welcome to the Rift Dungeon, where rules are optional if you're us. Let me back up. The Rift Dungeon is an ancient relic of the world-ending catastrophe that shook this continent 100 years ago. Apparently, some hole in space opened up and just vomited out a tower that leads to hell, or as our dear educators like to call it, a controlled combat environment for magical and martial advancement. It's got 100 floors. They've explored up to floor 46. Monsters regenerate every day because the dungeon hates peace. First-year students, like us, we're only allowed to explore up to floor 5. Simple, right? Except let's go to floor 10, Riel said, full of adrenaline and bad ideas. Why? I asked, mid-stretch. The school explicitly told us not to. They gave a whole slide presentation on why floor 5 is our limit. There were safety graphics. Animations. A golem in a tie explained it. She grinned. Exactly. Which means the real stuff starts after 5. Graham clapped. I brought glow sticks and 6 different bombs. Eli was already checking her sword for rust like this was her pre-gym ritual. And me? I sighed. Because I knew the moment I agreed to this squad, I sold my peaceful afterlife for chaos in formal wear. Underscore. Floor 1 to 5. The legally sanctioned stroll of death. The first 5 floors were honestly underwhelming. Giant rats, basic goblins, some flying jellyfish that tried to drain our mana and got roasted by my spiral flame lash. We even saw other squads, squeaky clean first years pretending they were in an epic saga. They waved. We nodded. They stayed on floor 4 like good children. We did not. Floor 6 to 9. Regret rises like heatstroke. Floor 6 introduced a new enemy. Wraith spiders. Imagine if someone took a tarantula, dipped it in shadow magic, gave it the ability to teleport and scream in Latin, and dropped them from the ceiling without warning. Riel tanked them. Eli cut off legs mid-air. I incinerated nests with firebolts and used wind pressure arcs to sweep the ones behind us. Graham? He threw a glowing powder at one that caused it to turn inside out. That was floor 6. By floor 8, we were dealing with spectral blades, ghost knights armed with weapons that phased through armor and sliced your mana control. You ever get your magic core sliced? It's like a brain freeze, migraine, and kidney stone had a baby and that baby screamed in mana code. Eli almost passed out. Riel's armor started to crack. I was burning through mana potions like a mid-exam caffeine addict. I wanted to turn back, but Riel looked at me, bloodied, bruised, grinning like a berserker, and said, "Just one more." And I, like the idiot I am, I said, "Fine. But if I die, I'm haunting you, naked, Floor 10. Oh look, a boss room. Fantastic. The air changed the second we hit floor 10. It got cold. Stale. Not just dungeon spooky, but that deep, primal kind of wrong that makes your stomach clench. The walls shifted. The hallway narrowed, and then we saw it. A stone door, 20 feet tall, covered in runes that glowed with necrotic magic. "Well," Graham whispered, "that's never good." Riel pushed the door open. And there he was. The Lich. The dead guy with a PhD in pain. The room was circular, lined with skeletal statues, and at its center stood a Lich. Robes of deep violet, crown of bone, eyes like dying stars. He didn't move. He just raised his hand, and the statues turned their heads. "Oh no, defense formation," I yelled, voice already cracking. Eli vanished left. Riel took point. Graham started prepping bombs like a chef in a live cooking show. The Lich snapped his fingers, and the fight began. The battle. How to die artistically in 100 moves or less. His first attack. Soulfire Lance. It tore through the space where I'd been standing half a second ago. I countered with Scorching Chains, trying to trap his movement. He blinked, literally teleported, and reappeared behind Graham, hand raised. "Graham, move." Graham did a backflip and dropped a flashbomb. Eli came in from the side, sliced through the Lich's ribs, and her blade just passed through like air. Illusion. He was projecting multiple bodies at once. Real ones in the center, I screamed. Riel tackled the central Lich form, slammed him with a mana-coated punch, and finally, he staggered. I charged my strongest spell, Vera Flare Cannon, concentrated fire compressed into a lance of explosive heat. Problem? Took 6 seconds to charge. The Lich noticed. He lifted his staff. A wave of necrotic energy shot toward me. Riel intercepted it. Her armor shattered, and she hit the wall, unconscious. Shit. Graham activated something he called Mana Candy Ultra, which I'm 99% sure was illegal, and turned his skin briefly green while throwing 4 bombs in sequence. 2 exploded with lightning. 2 exploded with glitter? Dazzle powder, he shouted. The Lich hesitated. I didn't. Vera Flare Cannon. I let the spell go. It slammed into the Lich, melting half his torso and blasting him across the chamber. Eli moved in for the finish, dodging bone spikes, parrying his staff, until she drove her blade into the center of his skull. There was a scream. Not from the Lich, from the dungeon. The room shook. Walls cracked, and the Lich disintegrated. Aftermath. Lying on the floor contemplating my life choices. I lay on the stone floor, smoke still rising from my cloak. Riel groaned from the corner. Eli was sitting, wiping blood off her sword. Graham was humming and chewing something glowing. We didn't speak. We just lay there, processing the fact that we, 4 first years, killed a floor 10 boss we weren't supposed to even see until year 3. You know what? I said finally. I want a raise. I don't care that we're students. I want a dungeon hazard pay clause. Eli coughed. Do we tell the school? No, Riel muttered, still woozy. We just say we got lost. Into a sealed floor, I said dryly. She smiled, bloodied and proud. Exactly. I sighed. Stared at the cracked ceiling. One day, I told myself. One day I'll live a quiet life, but today we killed a lich. And I was 80% sure the dungeon now remembered my name. If I could summarize our return from the dungeon in one word? Awkward. Not traumatized. Not glorious. Not even painful, though my bruised ribs would disagree. No, it was just deeply, stupidly awkward. Because after slaying a literal lich on the 10th floor of a dungeon we weren't even legally supposed to enter, we were rewarded with a glowing blue teleportation gate that opened in the center of the boss chamber like a smug, magical exit sign. And let me tell you, getting out was way easier than going in. The gate of shame. The moment we stepped through the gate, we didn't reappear in the dungeon lobby. No, we appeared in the middle of the academy's central teleportation chamber. In front of 1. 3 stunned faculty members, 2. 5 healers, 3. The headmaster, 4. And Princess Silveria herself. Great. Exactly what I wanted after near death. A royal audience for my walk of shame. I limped forward. My hair was half scorched, my robes smelled like roasted skeletons, and I was dragging my staff like a cane. Hi, I croaked. The headmaster blinked. Squad 7. Reporting in, Riel saluted, like she hadn't taken a lich blast to the spine. Silveria narrowed her eyes at me. Floor 10. I pointed at Riel. She made me. She did not cast your spells, Wireheart, she shot back. Touché. Immediate aftermath, the meeting of doom. We were detained. Politely. Which is to say, escorted to the faculty offices with urgent administrative concern levels of enthusiasm. All 4 of us sat in plush chairs, bandaged and tired, while 7 teachers, the headmaster, and Silveria glared at us like we were war criminals. I want to be very clear, said Professor Denvar, the tactical training officer. No first-year student is permitted past floor 5. That is not a suggestion. It is not a guideline. It is a law. Well, Graham said cheerfully, we broke it in style. Shut up, Graham, I whispered. Explain, demanded Headmaster Torgold. I rubbed my face. We wanted to challenge ourselves. One floor led to another. We saw the gate. We didn't expect a boss. Then the boss tried to kill us. So we killed him first. That's it. That's it? Silveria's voice was sharp. You fought a floor 10 lich, an entity that has previously slaughtered full exploration teams, and call it asterisk. That's it? Do you even grasp what you've done? Yes, I said. We survived. That's the important part. Wrong answer. The verdict. School jail. They deliberated for about 20 minutes while we sat in silence. Then the headmaster returned and gave us our sentence. 2-week suspension. Immediate parental notification. Dungeon privileges revoked for the semester. Oh good, I said. A vacation. You'll spend it at home, Professor Riven added with a dark smile. Your families will be informed. My soul left my body. Parental summoning. 4-way fury. The next morning, all 4 of our parents were gathered in the academy's grand disciplinary hall. That's right. All of them. In one room. It was like a boss rush of disappointed adults. My father, Cale Wireheart, the literal court mage, stood like a thundercloud beside my mother, who looked like she was one sigh away from casting Disowned Sun. Tier 3. Riel's mother crossed her arms and glared at me like I had corrupted her daughter. Graham's parents looked actually proud, until the fine for alchemical misconduct was read. And Eli's father, a former military captain who said nothing, but sharpened his dagger with increasing speed every time someone said unauthorized. The princess, of course, sat like a judge above it all, observing. Explain to me, my father said slowly, why my son, my only son, decided to casually enter a death floor, fight a lich, and nearly become undead kindling. I looked at Riel. She smiled innocently. Don't look at her, my mom barked. You're not married yet. Yet, I choked. Oh no, said Riel's mother. I like the sound of that. Eli facepalmed. Graham offered everyone potion cookies. It was pure hell. Exile. Squad 7's suspension begins. They didn't even let us pack. One instant we were in the meeting. Next, teleportation scrolls activated. Boom. Back in the capital. Back at my house. Because apparently, Lucian's home is now the unofficial base of operations for the Chaos Children of Squad 7. My home, not a hotel. I opened the front door, exhausted, trying to process my coming 2 weeks of shame. Then Riel walked in, followed by Graham, followed by Eli. What are you doing? Riel dropped her sword bag. We're suspended as a squad. That means we suffer as a squad. You have homes. Yours has better food, Eli said. Your mom makes healing dumplings, Graham added. She added sleeping powder last time, I hissed. Riel threw an arm around my shoulders. Home is where the overachieving mage lives. Deal with it. Reputation and rumors. Thanks, Dungeon. The next day, we found out that the entire academy now knew what we'd done. Senior students walked past our house, pointing. One noble sneered, so the suicidal first years really cleared floor 10? Must have been beginner's luck. Another snorted, I heard the lich tripped and fell. One offered a gold coin to see my fire-burnt underwear. I considered flame bolting them all. Meanwhile, the staff had quietly listed us in the high-risk watch list, reserved for unstable students with exceptional potential. Oh good. Another label. Peace? Never heard of it. That night, I sat at my desk, trying to write in my spell journal. Downstairs, Graham was cooking a manna pie that glowed green. Riel and Eli were arm wrestling. My mother was giving them snacks and ominous prayers. I sighed. This was my life now. No peace, no quiet. No low-profile survival. Just chaos, dungeons, and death-defying roommates. I stared out my window and muttered, I reincarnated for this? And from the other room, Riel yelled, yes you did. If hell existed, it probably looked like this. A towering marble building with banners flapping in the wind, robed old men with stern faces pacing around, the constant hum of enchantments in the air, and me, dragged by my own father like a shoplifter getting marched through a holy temple of bureaucracy and rules. Welcome to the Royal Mage Corps headquarters. Population. The uptight, the judgmental, and apparently now Squad 7. Listen carefully, all of you. Cale Wireheart, Supreme Court Mage and the man responsible for me being born into this overachieving lunacy, barked as we marched through the polished hallways. This isn't a school. This is the real world. Here, mistakes get people killed, not suspended. Great, Graham whispered to me. So if we blow something up, we just die. Much simpler system. Shut up, I hissed. The walk of judgment. The moment we stepped in, everyone stared. Like, everyone. Men and women in gilded robes looked up from rune-etched scrolls and glowing crystal orbs to get a look at the circus animals Cale had brought in. Oh, those must be the dungeon brats, one enchanter muttered. That's Cale's son? The reckless one? A summoner asked. Honestly expected him to have more discipline, another said. I waved. Graham bowed. Riel stretched like she owned the place. Eli was suspiciously quiet. Too quiet. She was either planning murder or taking notes on the architecture. Dad ignored it all and pushed open 2 massive silver doors. Squad 7, he said, voice like thunder, welcome to your punishment. The lecture gauntlet begins. For the next 8 hours, we were passed around like cursed artifacts between high-ranking mages. Lecture after lecture. Scroll after scroll. PowerPoint crystal after soul-sucking PowerPoint crystal. This is the etiquette of mage protocol when facing inter-empire negotiations. If your summon appears in public without command, you're liable for damages. Always stabilize your mana core before teleportation, lest you explode. Don't flirt with fellow court members in the middle of a summoning ritual. Wait, that last one, Riel began. Don't, I warned. The threat heard round the room. Around hour 5, during a hypothetical case study on what not to do in a dungeon scenario, surprise. It was this. Kale pulled me aside. We stepped into a private room filled with floating mana diagrams and softly glowing wards. He didn't yell, which made it worse. I should have put you in the military, Lucian, he said calmly. I blinked. Excuse me? At least there, the beatings are consistent and stupidity gets carved out of you by week 2. Well, I already have Riel for that. I'm serious, he said, eyes narrowing. You keep pulling stunts like that, I will send you to the Eastern Garrison. No books. No beds. Just grit, swords, and whatever's left of your common sense. Dad. Do I make myself clear? I swallowed. Yes, sir. Good. Now go memorize Magical Storage Law Section 32. Parent meeting. The real horror begins. When we finally got home, I was ready to collapse. Until I stepped into the kitchen and saw Riel's mother sitting with my mother, sipping tea. Never a good sign. I quietly backed away, too late. Oh, Lucian. My mother beamed. Riel's mother came to discuss something very important. Riel came down the stairs, saw her mother, and froze. Oh no, she muttered. We were just talking, my mom said, about how the two of you clearly influence each other so much. Negatively, Riel's mom added with a smile. You nearly got each other killed, my mom exclaimed. And suspended, and nearly dismembered by a lich, and we thought, Riel's mom said, placing down her tea, that maybe we should just marry you two off and hope for the best. Dead silence. Riel blinked. What? My soul left my body again. Well, her mom shrugged. You already spend more time with him than any other boy, and clearly neither of you are going to listen to anyone. Might as well let your husband yell at you instead of your teacher. Mom. Riel shrieked. What? I'm just saying. You're an idiot. Riel turned bright red, spun on her heel, and ran up the stairs like her life depended on it. Door slammed. I turned to my mom. She looked oddly pleased. Why are you smiling? She sipped her tea. Nothing. Just thinking how nice it would be to have a fire mage in the family. Stop it, I said. Who's taller than you? She added. Mother. The night after. Squad debriefs. That evening, we all sat in my room like survivors of a particularly brutal war camp. Eli was lying on my bed upside down. Graham was passed out with an alchemy book on his face. Riel hadn't come down all evening. Do you think, Eli said, staring at the ceiling, they were actually serious about the marriage thing? No, I said immediately. Your mom was. She's been serious about Stranger Things. Would it be that bad? Eli asked, tilting her head. I stared at her. What is this? A conspiracy now? You and Riel already bicker like a married couple. That's because she hits me with her sword. Graham snorted in his sleep. Later that night. The room next door. I couldn't sleep. So I got up, walked to Riel's door, and hesitated. Knocked. Once. Go away, came the muffled reply. I just wanted to make sure you weren't planning a murder-suicide pact with your mother. The door opened. Riel stood there, hair messy, eyes tired, expression unreadable. She's an idiot, she said. Weirdly persuasive idiot. She thinks if we get married, we'll calm each other down. I don't think she knows either of us. She laughed softly, then stepped back and led me into her room. Just sit, she said, flopping back on the bed. Let's pretend today didn't happen. Agreed. We sat in silence for a while, just breathing, just being alive. After almost dying, after being lectured into oblivion, after dodging magical marriage proposals, I really don't want to be in the military, I muttered. Same, she said. Let's not die, deal, we shook on it. Then promptly fell asleep, like two overcooked potatoes in a pile of exhaustion. You ever get that feeling something's off? Like that calm before the storm? That itchy sensation behind your neck that whispers, you're being played? Yeah. I had that feeling the entire last day of our suspension. Kale was too quiet. That meant one of two things. Either he was planning to sell me to the military like a low-grade cattle mage, or he'd finally given up trying to fix me and had chosen strategic ignorance as his coping method. Turns out, it was worse. The letter of doom that morning. I caught my father reading a letter at the kitchen table. His face was its usual "I command the elemental forces of creation" seriousness, but something in his eyes flickered. Suspicion levels. Critical. He looked up, folded the paper carefully, and stood. "You're going back to the academy tomorrow. Be ready by dawn." No fireball to the face. No threats. No lectures, just that. Too simple. Too clean. Riel, munching toast beside me, gave me a side eye. "Did he just say dawn?" "He did," I said. "Is he broken?" "No, he's scheming. And dear gods, he was. Underscore. Returned to the crime scene the next morning, we arrived at the academy gates just before sunrise, bodies dragging, minds still somewhere between barely awake and eternally resentful. Graham stumbled out of the carriage with a pillow still clutched in his arms. Eli had a potion flask in one hand and a sharp stick in the other. I wasn't going to ask. "Riel?" She was suspiciously alert. Never trust morning people. We walked through the gates like heroes returning from exile. And that's when I noticed something was wrong. Everyone was staring at us. More than usual. Underscore. "Welcome to the Shark Tank." A staff member appeared with a clipboard, smiling with the glee of someone who absolutely knew we were in for a bad time. Squad 7. "Welcome back. You've been relocated." "Relocated?" I asked. "To Elite Division. Second-year track." "Excuse me? Your curriculum has been advanced due to your exceptional performance in dungeon operations," she read mechanically. "Recognition granted by the Academy and endorsed by Her Highness, Princess Silveria Elian Welschin." I stared at her. "Say that again. Slower. You're now second-year elite students, effective immediately." Behind me, Riel blinked. "What?" Graham dropped his pillow. Eli swore under her breath. Underscore. The Hall of Condescension. We were escorted through a wing of the academy I'd never seen before. High walls. Glowing runes. Students with the posture of people who either owned estates or had killed to take one. Their uniforms were slightly different, trimmed in silver and black instead of gold. Their badges gleamed. As we passed, conversations stopped. Eyes turned. We might as well have had fresh meat written on our backs. "I feel like I'm in a lion pit," Graham whispered. "They look like they drink dragon blood for breakfast," Eli muttered. "Correction," I sighed. "We're in a lion pit," and then we entered our new classroom. Underscore. The elite class experience. It was more of a small arena than a class. Wide, tiered seating. Spell-resistant walls. Projection glyphs overhead. Every desk had a built-in spell calibration crystal. And every student in that room, older than us, bigger than us. Smarter? Probably not. But I wasn't about to test that theory while outnumbered and undercaffeinated. They all turned when we walked in. The silence was so heavy it could have been a spell. "Oh gods, the children are here," someone muttered from the back. "Is this a prank? The first years? Really?" A tall swordsman with white hair and golden eyes leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "These are the dungeon heroes. I expected taller." "Thanks," I muttered. I expected fewer trust fund faces. A few students snorted. One girl even smiled. "Progress?" Underscore. The princess's chains. Before we could process the social death we'd just been gifted, a shadow passed through the door. An older student. Uniform perfectly pressed. Expression blank. Platinum blonde hair. Violet eyes like an executioner who'd learned etiquette for fun. "Morning," she said crisply. "I'm Cassandra Violwin, Student Council Secretary." "I already don't like her," I muttered to Graham. "I'm here on direct orders from Her Highness Princess Silveria Elian Welschin. And now I liked her even less. You will be monitored as part of your promotion terms. Your progress, behavior, combat readiness, spell discipline, class decorum, and personal conduct will be reported daily to the council." "Does that include how often I blink?" I asked. "Yes," she said without blinking. I flinched. Underscore. Homeroom. Trial by fire. Our new homeroom professor was a skeletal old man named Professor Alton, whose robes smelled faintly of sulfur and who introduced himself by listing the names of his former students that died in action. "Magic is not a toy," he rasped. "It is a weapon, and most of you wield it like children swinging sticks." He paused on us. "Let us see if these promoted lambs survive the wolves." Riel leaned toward me. Is it too late to go back to first year? Yes, I muttered. They've probably already converted our old seats into firewood. Advanced classes, advanced madness. The rest of the day was an exhausting blur of tailored nightmare schedules. Advanced elemental theory, where spells were cast in sequences that resembled symphonies more than incantations. The teacher made me duel a senior who summoned a mini blizzard. I countered with a flamethrower spell. We both got detention. Battle tactics. We were given miniatures and real-time maps of war zones. Eli accidentally blew up the table trying to simulate a raid. Spell weaving. I tried to thread wind and fire into a flaming cyclone. Accidentally lit Graham's sleeve. He didn't notice, called it warm. Sword combat. Mandatory. Riel went feral and tried to challenge a rank 3 senior. He accepted. She nearly took off his eyebrow. He's still in the infirmary. Lunch. The only refuge. We huddled in the farthest corner of the mess hall, away from the glowing hair, expensive perfume, and dual invitations. Okay, Graham said, chewing bread. This isn't horrible, just horrifying. I miss being a delinquent first year, Eli sighed. Riel looked unusually quiet. She kept glancing toward the windows, lost in thought. I nudged her. You okay? They don't like us here. No one likes us anywhere, I said. But at least we're consistent. I want to be strong, she muttered. I don't want them to look down on us. I watched her for a moment. For all her bravado, Riel did care. About strength. About status. About being taken seriously. I'll stand behind you, I said quietly, even when you throw me at the next monster. She grinned a little. As a meat shield, I'm versatile. End of day. Cassandra's lovely surveillance. Before we could collapse, Cassandra reappeared. Report. What report? I asked. Your daily activity summary. You have 5 minutes. I stared. You're joking. She handed me a mana recording crystal. This will monitor your tone. Be honest, or the council will be notified. I took it. Held it. Then muttered. Dear Student Council. Today I fought a blizzard mage, lit my best friend on fire, watched Riel almost assassinate a noble, and resisted the urge to set this entire building ablaze. Cassandra blinked. Acceptable. Then she walked away. Final thoughts. We're so screwed. That night, lying in the unfamiliar elite dorm beds, I stared at the ceiling. We were now second years. Elite section. Surrounded by prodigies, sociopaths, and the occasional literal war criminal. Under constant surveillance by the royal family. Being tailored for something that felt a lot like a future they had in mind, not us. And worst of all? No one had told us in advance. Kale. You bastard. There's a moment in every poor bastard's life when the brain just clicks and goes. Right. I either start pretending I'm competent or my life goes straight into a flaming ditch. For me, that moment came with the arrival of the midterm announcement scroll. And it had a very bold title, Academy Notice. Midterm Assessment for Elite Division. Failure results in expulsion and reassignment to military or vocational sectors per Royal Mandate Section 7A. Now, if you're a noble or a battle-crazed lunatic with a personal tutor and 6 enchanted swords at your hip, this probably just meant some good old-fashioned flexing. But for me, it meant one thing. Get serious or get shipped off to the front lines, or worse, a wedding. The stakes of doom. Let me break this down for you. If I failed the midterm? Kale, in his infinite fatherly love, had already drafted paperwork to throw me into the Mage Corps. Riel's mom had picked out wedding rings because, according to her, you two idiots clearly need structure. Graham would lose his potion license in training and become a glorified herb hunter with zero funding. Eli, her military father, had already sent a formal proposal to House Harvin, aka, the arranged marriage she's been running from since she was 12. So yeah, this was no longer school, this was war. Operation. Pretend to be talented, alright. Listen up, I announced one evening, standing over our dorm's cluttered war table. Okay, dining table. Riel, Graham, and Eli looked up with various levels of dread in their eyes. We need a plan. Do we though? Graham asked. We could just run away. Eli nodded. I hear the northern borderlands are warm this time of year. No, I said, deadpan. We're going to act like the elite students they think we are. Riel raised an eyebrow. We're pretending? Oh, I don't need to pretend, I said with mock pride. I just need to finally study the attributes I've been ignoring since we got here. Graham coughed. Wait, you've just been winging it with fire and wind? Fire is fun. Wind is stylish. Water and earth are boring. But necessary, Eli chimed in, pointing at the curriculum scroll. Water for healing, defense, flow magic. Earth for shielding, reinforcement, environmental manipulation. You know, grown-up stuff, underscore. Squad 7's study arc begins. We split duties like survivors splitting rations in a zombie apocalypse. Lucian's elemental enlightenment. I started waking up early. Yes. Me. Voluntarily. There was a water focus room in the East Wing, which was a glorified freezing pool with mana threads humming through the walls. To connect with water, you had to sit in it, feel it, breathe through it. I froze my balls off, but you know what? It worked. Once I stopped focusing on brute force and started thinking like water, calm, deep, flowing, I found I could manipulate moisture in the air. Condense it. Turn it into scalding mist. Cool steam. Needles of condensed water pressure. It wasn't flashy, but it was surgical, controlled. Earth was harder. Too dense. Too still. Until I stopped thinking of it as rock and started thinking of it as support, like bones to my flame. Once that clicked. Boom. Stone platforms. Earth wall layers. Ground reinforcement under my feet when I launched wind leaps. Congratulations, my elemental instructor said dryly. You're no longer a firework. Thanks, I said. I'm now a volcano, underscore. Riel and Eli's sword bootcamp. Riel, ever the sword addict, actually calmed down for once. With the pressure of expulsion and marriage, even she decided maybe learning actual sword forms instead of just hit it until it dies was worth her time. Under the brutal guidance of instructor Theon, also known as that man with dead eyes and a scar across his entire back, Riel and Eli were put through sword hell. Day 1. 1,000 strikes. Day 2. Blades weighed down with mana weights. Day 3. Blindfolded sparring in a maze of illusions. By day 5, Riel was quiet for the first time in recorded memory. I think I saw God, she whispered to me during lunch. Did he have abs? I asked. Maybe, but she was improving. Her movements had rhythm now. Flow. Form. Even when Eli trash-talked her. Nice swing, Riel. You almost scratched my aura. Say that again and I'll remove your aura with a boot. Ah. Friendship. Underscore. Graham's potion prison. Graham, meanwhile, had been leashed directly by the one instructor crazier than him. Instructor Helsha, a woman known for carrying vials that hissed, glowed, or giggled disturbingly. She had one rule. Brew it big. Brew it fast. Brew it dangerous. So Graham had an entire lab now, but it wasn't the fun throw shit together and watch it explode lab. It was regulated, efficient, professional. Helsha wanted bulk potions for combat, healing, mana, resistance. Use monster parts. Learn what reacts. Brew like you're fueling an army. And gods help him, Graham loved it. He even wore a lab coat now. It was always on fire, but it was still a lab coat. Underscore, the weeks of blood, sweat, and tears. We trained like possessed demons. Lucian the lazy fire mage? Gone. Now I was cramming elemental theorems, scripting spellweaving drills, and forging hybrid spells like earth and flame, lash and mist veil burn. Riel and Eli went from wild brawlers to disciplined killers who could duel circles around nobles. And Graham? His potions had labels now. Labels. He even started bottling combinations for squad use. Mana pop. Recharges spells like a sugar rush from hell. Thick skin. Temporary stone skin resistance. Oops, all fire. We're not allowed to talk about that one anymore. Underscore, the night before the test. The library was quiet. The four of us sat around our table, too tired to talk, too wired to sleep. So, I muttered, if we fail tomorrow we get expelled, Riel said. Married, I added. Drafted, Eli said. Turned into a mushroom farmer, Graham muttered. We sat in silence. Then we laughed, because somehow, someway, we had become real students. Horrifying. Underscore. Midterm. Day of reckoning. We arrived in uniform, hair combed, faces neutral. Each of us was summoned for individual assessment. Magic, sword, potion, tactics. Every subject. The pressure? Immense. But we moved like we belonged. Lucian Wireheart showed elemental manipulation in all 4 types, deployed hybrid spell, sustained active casting for 10 minutes. Riel Verdun fought a ranked instructor to a draw in duel simulation, passed with commendation. Eli Harvin demonstrated sword disruption techniques and field acrobatics, ranked top 5 in class. Graham Fenrick submitted field-ready bulk potions with self-calibrating alchemical codes, labeled dangerous but brilliant. The results. A day later, the results were posted. Squad 7 passed. All of us. High marks. Scary remarks. Wireheart. Unstable, unorthodox, but devastating in application. Verdun. Combat prodigy. Should not be allowed to duel students unsupervised. Harvin. Gifted duelist. Needs emotional outlet before she breaks a limb on purpose. Fenrick. Chaos incarnate. But useful chaos, we didn't celebrate. Not really, we just exhaled. Final thoughts for once, we were caught up. No death chases. No royal politics. No magical artifacts trying to bond with our souls. Just us. Trying. Fighting. Learning. Squad 7. The freaks, the weirdos, the almost expelled failures. Now, we were survivors. I should have known peace was temporary. We'd barely finished wiping the exam blood off our souls when a sealed scroll with a gold crest landed on my pillow like divine judgment. I stared at it for a long second, wondering if I could pretend it didn't exist. Lucian. Did you get the scroll too? Riel burst into the room with the energy of a caffeine-deprived sword nut. Eli followed, scroll in hand, face blank. Graham staggered in last, eyes bloodshot and reeking of mana-distilled herbs. Oh, thank the ancients, I muttered, it's not just me. The scroll read, in gold-inked tyranny, to Squad 7. You are summoned by direct order of Her Highness Princess Silveria Elian Welschin. Training begins at dawn tomorrow. Dungeon Floor 11, full compliance expected. Student Council, you ever read something so royal it slaps the rebellion right out of you? Yeah, that was this. The real reason we were summoned, is this a reward? Eli asked as we stood in front of the teleport gate the next morning, groggy and unsure if we were dreaming. More like being recruited, I muttered. Princess Silveria wanted support. Not friends. Not followers. Support. Like soldiers holding up a throne. Apparently, the race for the imperial crown wasn't just decorative. Her brother, the current heir, had ideas. Authoritarian, old school, burn the colonies and build iron towers kind of ideas. She needed a counterweight, and we were unpredictable. Efficient. Possibly insane. Basically, the perfect chaos to weaponize. Dungeon Floor 11, the monster petting zoo. The moment we stepped through the gate, the scent hit me, wild grass, damp leaves, and the very faint musk of magical creatures. Floor 11 wasn't like the upper undead-infested levels. No decay. No rot. Just a vast, sprawling jungle full of taming class monsters. Welcome, Princess Silveria said, descending a moss-covered stone stair, dressed in battle armor way too regal for a dungeon dive. To your real training. Behind her stood 4 members of the student council, deadly, polished, watching us like they already knew we'd crack. Midterms. Cute. She gestured at the jungle beyond. This is survival. Growth. Obedience. Her eyes glittered like twin shards of ice. Here, you'll forge stronger bonds. With your summons, with your elements, and with each other. Or you'll break. Great. Royal Psychotic Bootcamp. Day 1. Snake issues and tamer envy, your summons underdeveloped, said the girl named Vena, beast tamer and council member, eyeing my fire snake with a mix of disgust and pity. It's not even a true contract beast. It's feral. Well, he spits fire and bites nobles, I replied. So I'm calling that a win. She narrowed her eyes. Summons evolve with their contractor. If it hasn't, that's your fault. No bond, no growth. She tossed her silver whip to the ground and summoned her own companion. A massive blue panther with shadow-laced paws and eyes that glowed with ancient wisdom. My snake hissed from my shoulder. I swore it was offended. Bond with it, she said. Talk to it. Feed it. Bleed for it. Or it'll never become more than a fancy belt. The training, soft words, brutal results. Let me paint a picture for you. Princess Silveria didn't yell. She didn't threaten. No, that would be beneath her. She simply described what you'd do, with a sweet smile and a tone that suggested she'd flay you alive with etiquette if you said no. Riel and Eli, sent to train in monster hunting formations against semi-intelligent pack monsters. They were mauled. Not fatally, but emotionally wrecked. Graham, forced to craft potions using wild dungeon flora, most of which had legs or mouths. One flower tried to marry him. Me, Bond training. Sit with your summon. Focus on your monolink. Share your thoughts. Share your pain. I'm not taking it on a date, I muttered, but I did what they said. My snake, whom I'd never named, slithered up my arm and coiled loosely around my neck as I sat on a mossy stone. I closed my eyes, reached through our link, felt flickers. Heat. Hunger. Rage. Loneliness. The emotions weren't mine, but they weren't fully alien either. I'm sorry I treated you like a tool, I whispered. The snake didn't reply, but the air warmed slightly. The bond pulsed, once, like an acknowledgement, End of day 1. The color drain. We returned to camp covered in scratches, sweat, and monster fluids. Remind me, Eli groaned as she dragged her sword behind her, why we said yes to this again? We didn't, I muttered. The princess said yes for us. Graham was chewing on something green and twitchy. I saw a lizard cast a healing spell. I'm hallucinating. Riel plopped beside me and stared up at the fake dungeon sky. She's serious. The princess. She wants to make us actual weapons. I nodded slowly. She wants us for her crown. No sarcasm this time. Just quiet truth. A moment with the snake that night, while the others passed out around the campfire, I sat alone and summoned my snake again. He curled around my arm, eyes glowing faintly. This time, he wasn't coiled in hostility. He was calm. You know, I whispered, if we survive this, you're getting a name. A flick of the tongue. Not a refusal. I was thinking something dramatic, like Pyrrhus. Another flick. Or if you want something less edgy, Ember? He curled tighter. Warmth spread through the bond. My mana flared gently, and for the first time, I felt it loop through him, and back into me. We were sinking. I smiled. Yeah, Ember works. Closing thoughts. This wasn't just training, this was recruitment. We weren't students anymore. We were assets. Pieces on a royal chessboard. And we were getting stronger, not for school, not even for survival. But for what was coming next. The war for the crown had begun, quietly, in whispers. And we, Squad 7, were already in the game. You ever have one of those days where you wake up and feel the universe's hand reaching down to flick you like a cockroach on a coffee table? That was today. Cassandra Violwyn, our lovely, silver-haired, dead-eyed supervisor, stood before us in the training field, arms crossed, expression void of joy or remorse. Next to her, Princess Silveria, sipping tea like she hadn't just authorized our public execution. I believe Squad 7 and the Council should conduct a joint mock battle, Cassandra said, her voice calm like a guillotine sliding down. Excellent idea, the princess said, because of course she did. Let us nurture bonds through practical experience. Which translates to break them until they follow me like leashed dogs. Match setup. Welcome to the meat grinder. So, here we were. Audience, half the academy faculty and elite class students. Arena. A wide, stone-lined platform etched with runes to suppress fatal attacks. Note. Suppress, not prevent. So you could technically survive with 2 lungs collapsed and 1 eye twitching. It'll be one-on-one, Cassandra added, smiling faintly like she enjoyed watching people get their dreams kicked in the ribs. This is not a test. This is a demonstration. Of what? Our future trauma. Match 1. Riel versus Alandor Rinhart, blade form disciple. Riel stepped forward first, because she has this thing where fear is apparently just a suggestion. Her opponent, Alandor, was a golden boy from the Royal Dueling Academies. Flowing silver hair. Smug face. The type that drinks tea with his pinky raised and judges you for not knowing 14 different ways to parry. They bowed. Then the moment the signal flared, Riel charged. And Alandor just sidestepped. No fancy footwork. No spells. He moved like a shadow and clipped her shoulder with the flat of his blade. Then again. Then again. He wasn't overpowering her, he was reading her, countering, predicting. She swung harder, he slowed down, she went wild, he got quieter. And then she was on her knees, panting, bruised, and he stood like he hadn't even broken a sweat. Battle isn't just about passion, he said with a shallow bow, it's control. Riel spat blood and grinned. Next time I'm stabbing your smug face. Underscore. Match 2. Eli versus Serena Cadwin, the Moonblade Initiate. Eli was next. Calm. Focused. Serena. A pale-eyed knight with an elegance that felt surgical, like she could slice your ego in half with a glance. Their duel was poetry with consequences. Serena danced around Eli's strikes, stepping within her guard without power, only precision. Eli countered with brute strength and sudden shifts, forcing Serena back with a parry that made sparks fly off the enchanted platform. But then Serena whispered something, and her blade lit with soft silver light. Next thing we knew, Eli's sword was out of her hands, and she was on the ground, winded and laughing like a lunatic. Well, Eli coughed. She's prettier than she looks deadly. Serena blinked. I'm standing right here. Underscore. Match 3. Graham versus Cassandra Violwin. This one, a fever dream. Cassandra, who usually looks like she's mentally counting the seconds until your death, pulled out 2 crystalline artifacts, both floating midair like lazy stars. Graham, bless his soul, walked in with a keg strapped to his back. I call this potion Berserker's breakfast, he said. Might cause hallucinations. Then drank the entire bottle. What followed was a chaos ballet. Cassandra unleashed arcane pulses from her constructs, each calibrated to disrupt alchemy residue. Graham dodged by rolling, tossing potions like live grenades, and screaming the names of ingredients like they were war chants. Basilisk blood. Liquid regret. Hair of a drunk noble's dog. At one point, a mushroom cloud of glitter and frogs went up. Cassandra still won, obviously, but even she looked shaken when she walked out, soaked in some goo that hissed every time it touched stone. Underscore. Match 4. Me versus Vena the Beast Tamer. And then it was me. Vena smiled, cracking her knuckles. You're not allowed to use magic, she said sweetly, only your summon. Oh, I see. We're doing Pokemon battles now? Poke what? I sighed. Right. Fantasy world. No cartoons. Fine. I summoned Ember, my fire snake, who now looked like he'd been eating protein powder and hatred for breakfast. His scales shimmered more red than orange now, and his eyes burned like coals. Vena summoned her beast again. The panther, elegant, deadly. Ready, she said. I nodded. Ember, use flame burst. She blinked. That's not a real, boom. Ember launched forward like a missile. The panther dodged, barely, singed at the edges. They clashed. Coils against claws, flame against shadow. And then something happened. The platform trembled. Ember's body glowed, not like a spell, like evolution. I knew it, I shouted. You're a damn Pokemon. No one understood me. Ember shed his skin mid-battle, flames spiraling around him in a firestorm. He grew, sleek, serpentine, with wings of ember-threaded light curling from his back. Vena stepped back. What? He hissed, and roared. The panther retreated. I didn't blame it. Ember, I whispered, use firestorm. He unleashed a cone of burning pressure that sent half the field into chaos. Not fatal. Not quite, but enough to end the match. Vena stared at me like I'd just rewritten the summon manual. I concede, she said slowly. What is that thing? My buddy, I said, still high on disbelief. And yes, he is now a dragon snake. Underscore, post-match and the aftermath. Princess Silveria was still sipping tea when we reassembled, bruised, smoked, beaten, and trembling. "Well done," she said softly. "Each of you has potential, but it is not yet honed." I was still watching Ember fly lazy loops above my head, unsure if this counted as a character arc or a nervous breakdown. Riel wiped blood from her lip. "This was bonding, huh?" "Indeed," Silveria said, and gave that sweet, terrifying smile again. "Pain is the finest glue for loyalty." Cassandra stepped beside her. "Your team performed as expected. Unrefined. Untamed. But promising. I wasn't sure if we'd been trained or just publicly humiliated with flair. Probably both. But one thing was certain. We'd stood against the best. And we hadn't crumbled. Much." Here you reach the end of the video. Have a good day, dear.